Hi there, my name is Alasdair Kennedy and I'm the Sociable Social Worker, and I give practical advice to social workers and those looking to foster and adopt. In this video, I'm going to give you, the student social worker, some advice in transitioning to be a social worker. So if you're a student at the moment, stay tuned. If you're a social worker, there's some top tips in here as well for you. So stay tuned, let's get on with it. So at the moment you're a student social worker and you're about to transition into being a full-time social worker, maybe in your first year of practice. How do you do it? What are the key things that you need to do to learn from your first year in practice? And how do you manage it? Top tip number one, work in an area with lots of people. So something like child protection, so that there's lots of support for you. Don't pick something like project work, for example, which could mean that you could be quite isolated and you're not going to learn anything from anybody. And crucially, you need that experience, that modelling with other people. Top tip number two, work in an area that you used to have some experience in. So for example, mine was youth work. I had done a lot of detached youth work, so I felt quite easily that I could slip into a longer term team or even a child protection team. It was just, it fitted what talents I had, and the transition was easier for me and not so stark. Top tip number three, learn some organisational skills. Read a book about organisational skills and how you will manage your day, how will you manage your time, and make sure that you watch my video on time management, and I will be doing one on top apps for social work students, so that you can become more autonomous and you're not asking people loads of questions all the time. Top tip number four, understand your clients' needs and what services they'll require. So get to know the local area where you're working. So for example, if your clients are drug users, you'll need to know where the housing is, you'll need to know where drug services are, you'll need to know where the benefits office is. Top tip number five, use your IT equipment and make sure you know how to work it. It's really crucial nowadays that you understand how to use all sorts of different IT. So for example, iPads to iPhones, Android to Apple, you need to know that functionality, because especially now with COVID, it's September 2020, we're all doing video calls, we're recording data verbally, and we're using apps like never before in social worker. So use the functionality to the best of your ability. Top tip number six, training. Seek out training. Don't wait for your manager to come to you all the time. Seek out online training, seek out face-to-face training, and especially things around communication and court skills. Court skills is always invaluable. Top tip number seven. Now, before you start a job, make sure you know the local area. And this is going to sound a bit strange, but when I'm an interim worker, I make sure, usually because I'm staying away or I'm living away, but the same applies for you just working there on day to day. Make sure it's got facilities for you nearby where you can go out at lunch, you can go to the library, you can go to a park, there's a lovely coffee shop. Self-care is key. You need time out of the office. You can't always just be in the office from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, sit with your team all the time. You need to be spending time out with the office. Self-care is critical. Top tip number 8, make sure before you sign on the dotted line for a job as a new social worker that you understand your contract and you understand the working hours and the work that you're going to be undertaking. And believe you me, you can still negotiate contracts even as a newly qualified social worker, because some of you out there might have been social work assistants before, might have vast experience in social care, and you can always ask to be put in a midpoint of wages. You can always ask. All they can say is no. They won't stop you giving you the job. All they can say is no. Hey, it's worth a go, isn't it? As I say, all they can say is no. And top tip number 9, what I always say to students transitioning into their first job, and I call it doing your tour of duty. You need to do your tour of duty. It looks good in your CV, and by what I mean a tour of duty, I mean you need to stick out your first job for at least 3 years. It just makes it look more consistent on your CV, and that you stuck it out, and that you could handle the stress, you could handle the transition, and that you're consistent in your practice and you know what you're doing as a social worker. So I always advise new social workers, do your tour of duty. So there you have it, some top tips on transitioning from a student to being a full-time social worker, qualified social worker. If you think this video helps you, then give it a big like. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe, that'd be really helpful. And if you want more videos, then ring the little bell for notifications. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Thanks very much, and I'll see you again.